I started to research Elon Musk's life, watched a couple of videos on him on YouTube, and I'm like, wow, this guy is like the real life Iron Man.
It's a little disheartening that our life is a Marvel movie, but it's okay.
It's like probably the most successful form of predictive programming.
It's the first time that they all come together, all the superheroes. In the first Avengers movie, there's an alien invasion, and they all meet up in New York to repel the alien invasion.
Sometimes I get so taken aback by how overt the propaganda is and how impossible it is for the average normie to see it.
It's a Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem and they provide the solution.
When the government tells you nothing to see here, I don't believe you.
And Alan Moore has a great quote where he says, all art is literally magic because it affects the mass subconscious of humanity.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers.
We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight and be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobsta, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, I would like to remind all of our live viewers that this is a 30-minute preview only. Sometime around the 30-minute mark, we'll be going live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, shaking off the pores. But fear not, you can go over to patreon.com and you can subscribe for the free tier and gain access to not only the rest of this episode and access to the live chat, but also ad-free viewing experiences and our backlog of content. Nephilim Death Squad is back and rolling hot, and we've got a bunch of really great episodes coming up this week. You guys are going to see them, but they're only going to be 30-minute previews. If you want the rest of them, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad is for you. Also, don't forget to go to brogrove.com and pick up your tickets. Damn, how close are we? Let me see. Today's the 11th.
10 days, I guess, right?
What's that?
10 days? 10 days?
10 days. Well, it's the it's the 20th.
9 days.
So 9 days. Good God, man.
Oh my God.
Harrowing. Is it not?
Yeah.
I'm afraid, guys. Brogrove.com. Pick up your tickets. Come see performances from Owen Benjamin, Sam Tripoli, Nephilim Death Squad, Elijah Schaefer, Shane Cashman. I don't know what's going on with Tower Gang. We'll see.
Tower Gang is out, but they have been. I'm not. Maybe I will update this. We've replaced Tower Gang with Jake Shields. So
yes, same
failing
energy.
Upwards, I suppose.
Just a lot more anti-Semitic than Tower Gang. If you thought that was even possible, it is possible.
It's like anti-Semitic, but the real. Let's bring
the
in
actual real stuff. We're gonna be beating on stage. Guys, brogrove.com. Pick up your tickets and be there, or be. Guys, joining us today is somebody who this is the second return of Drew, or you can find him on X as Tang Reborn, and he's got this knack for making predictions. And we're going to talk about predictive programming. We're going to talk about the Marvel films. We're going to talk about this Elon Musk and Donald Trump beef. But before we get into that, can you just tell everybody, Drew, where they can find you and what is it that you focus on?
Yeah, so I'm just on X as Drutang Reborn, and my content is primarily just Twitter threads. But yeah, I guess what I focus on is really really in-depth research, not just necessarily surface level stuff. And in particular, what I've become known for is making predictions based off of a couple of different things, mainly predictive programming in Hollywood and mainstream media. And then on top of that, I'm also, of course, mixing in history, looking for cycles, adding in some astrology aspects, analyzing how, cycles in civilization work and things that have happened in the past, cycles repeating. And yeah, I've been able to make a few decent predictions. The one we're going to be talking about today are the Civil War conflict between Elon and Trump, and then the immigration based riots, which I have been talking about both since 2023 and a little earlier in some cases.
I love your work. It's a little disheartening that our life is a Marvel movie, but it's okay. And I I kind of want to just lay the groundwork of like where the prequels, or not the prequels, but the first movies, how that already played out, and where we are in the Marvel timeline that is America. It's disgusting. It's disgusting to say. I don't even like to say those words.
It's disgusting to say, but it's like I've talked to Drew once before, and he laid out, especially the Elon Iron Man connection. I think he did a great job catching that one, and it's evergreen because it still just keeps ringing true today in 2025. So yeah, what made the Marvel movies land on your radar? What made you go like, oh, they're prepping us for something?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. My friend Nick Hinton, who's another like Twitter conspiracy thread and book writer, we were working together on a documentary that we still haven't managed to shoot, but we did a lot of traveling. Went to Jekyll Island, Georgia Guidestones, and a few other esoteric locations around the country in preparation for it. And at that time in 2022, Musk had started to assert himself more into politics. And this is when he was talking about buying Twitter and stuff like that. And I'm like, this guy's like, he seems like a superhero. This is like a little bit too convenient. The world's richest man. I need to, dig into this a little more and see what's going on. And the first thing that kind of tipped me off about Elon and kind of Marvel in general was just like, I remember being, I believe I was like a college freshman, and I started to research Elon Musk's life, watched a couple of videos on him on YouTube, and I'm like, wow, this guy is like the real life Iron Man. He's made all these great companies, and he's so wealthy, and he's so cool. And then I watched some of the Marvel movies, and I noticed he's in Iron Man 2. And then I start looking into the interviews with Robert Downey Jr., the guy who plays Iron Man in the movies, and he literally in interviews, he says, yeah, the way I'm playing the character of Tony Stark, Iron Man, is based off of the real life mannerisms of Elon Musk. And I'm like, okay, so they've literally made this guy into, not only is he the richest man on Earth, but he also has the main protagonist out of a league of superheroes in the most expensive, multi-generational, lore and effectively mythology of America, the primary mythology of American culture. And then I was like, okay, so that's one thing. And if you look up in the list of Hollywood movies that have the most U.S. military involvement, Iron Man's on the top of it. And mind you, the 22 movies that built up to Avengers Endgame, the first one was Iron Man, and it is on that list of movies that have the most military involvement. They let him use all their jets in the movie, and so that kind of tipped me off. And then looking into Marvel itself, the origins of the comic book series, stuff like the fact that Captain America was not only used to sell war bonds, which I mean is a pretty obvious like propaganda application, but on top of that, Stan Lee himself, who is like seen as he's the patriarch of the Marvel universe. He had cameos in just about every one of those Marvel movies leading up into Endgame, and conveniently died right before Endgame came out.
Yeah, and I know that there was a couple of movies where they, Into the Spider-Verse, they use like a cartoon version of him. So they were even still inserting him in there after the fact that he was dead because they have rights to his soul eternally.
Oh, nice. Yeah, a little transhumanist resurrection.
Yeah.
And that's also what they do to Iron Man in the last film, obviously. But Stan Lee, he was one of 9 people hired by the Army during World War II and giving the designation playwright. So he was
Right.
literally a propagandist in World War II. And then he, of course, him specifically, Stan Lee, he came up with Iron Man, Spider-Man, and a couple others. And of course, they brought in other of the Avengers characters from different authors that they all put together inside the Marvel universe. But he had a big role in it. And then on top of that, what also really tipped me off onto the Marvel connection, in that it might be more than just a coincidence, and is instead a multi-generational propaganda campaign to prepare the U.S. population to accept a technocracy, aka a rule by the experts, aka a League of Heroes, which is what all the pantheon of superhero series are about. And it's like Coke and Pepsi. You got DC versus Marvel. In reality, they're the exact same archetypes. You have Iron Man, Batman as the moon slash, more physical material. And then you have the Ubermensch, which literally means Superman, slash Captain America archetype, which is more of like a full expression of like human potential. And it's more of solar symbolism. So you have those two archetypes, which are obviously Captain America, Trump, and Iron Man, Elon Musk, and that's leads up to the Civil War conflict we're talking about. But to what tipped me off that there's something more here is that the Marvel name itself. There was an occultist slash rocket scientist, Marvel Jack Parsons. He just goes by Jack Parsons. You wouldn't even know his first name is Marvel. I had to it was, weeks into my research that I found out that his actual first name was Marvel. I'm like, there's no way. But he had a very distinct look. He was a very eccentric guy, obviously, as a occultist rocket scientist. And they literally used his look to model the father of Tony Stark, of Iron Man, in the Marvel films. They used Jack Parsons' look to be the father of Iron Man.
Yep, 100%.
And
Wait,
what
does this
mean? That on display.
Why does it say?
Oh, go ahead.
Why does it say "We are witchcraft"?
We are witchcraft. Yeah, because it gets it.
I don't want to derail you because you're hammering it.
But he's dropping so many awesome things that we're gonna go back and we're gonna visit. So whenever just go off, man. I'm taking notes here. There's so much that you're hitting on, and we're gonna be able to paint a really great picture here for the audience about what the hell Marvel actually is, and it's not just this fun comic book series. For nerds. It's something else. It's like probably the most successful form of predictive programming. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that Jack Parsons guy is that in 1946 he did a ritual in the Mojave Desert called the Babylon Working, and the guy who he did it with was L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology slash Naval Intelligence Officer. So, and of course, Naval Intelligence, before the CIA was founded, there was the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA. But in reality, naval intelligence was the primary and most powerful intelligence agency of the U.S., deep state, essentially. And because it was kind of a copy off the British intelligence agencies, which we'll go into later. But yeah, so anyways, L. Ron Hubbard and him did a ritual called the Babylon Working. They did this working to summon Babylon, which would be the mother of this moonchild. Essentially, the point of their ritual is they're trying to manifest this moonchild. What's a moonchild? The moonchild is a book written by Aleister Crowley, probably the most famous occultist of the last couple hundred years. And Aleister Crowley wrote this book, The Moonchild, and it's essentially you'll be very the plot of this will be very familiar. It's about a chosen one child prophesied that's born, and he is supposed to there's a faction of light magicians and dark magicians that fight over the future of the child, that will be the leader of the new Aeon, or the new age. So, AKA Harry Potter, Star Wars, all of the, Wes Huff,
Yeah.
so he posted something on his Instagram earlier today, which was a tattoo that had Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter symbolism like all mixed together. And I'm like, all right, buddy, like you realize what you're
I wonder if
here?
he does, because he's like over the target there. You know what I mean? But I know that he is much more of like a biblical theologian, right? And so he's
He probably does. He probably does actually realize that.
We just we did
similar.
We did an episode yesterday with Seven Seas. Shout out that guy. He's a maniac. Love him. But we were talking about Palantir, and that goes directly back to Lord of the Rings. And it's like
Peter Thiel I didn't even know that Peter Thiel had named so much of the apparatus of the things that he is working on after aspects of the Lord of the Rings. That's fascinating.
Let's see. What are you talking about here on his Instagram?
It's on his story, his Instagram story.
Oh God, I wish I knew how to use this.
I think you can just press his
face,
dog.
Yeah, his face. Yeah.
And never press another man's face.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Jeez.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of symbolism, dog.
And he doesn't say anything. Okay. What does he say there? I
did not get this tattoo. FYI. Okay. Wait up. Just thought it was nerdy fun. That's not nerdy fun.
Dog, that's the unholy trinity of Jesus Christ ripoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what that is. It's a retelling of Christ. It's a copy, a bad copy. It's a imitation, essentially.
Yeah.
That's why those movies are so hard, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm not gonna jump down his throat because I don't know what he knows. No, he might not. Like, damn, dog.
Oh no, I mean it's just cool. It's cool media. They're the coolest series. I just rewatched the prequel, or sorry, I guess they're technically the sequels, of Star Wars recently, and talk about Elon Musk programming and like kind of what they are leading up to. You have Anakin Skywalker, this archetype that we're talking about, the Moon Child. Yep. You have Anakin Skywalker is born, Immaculate Conception, and then the factions of light and dark wizards fight over him, and he dies basically in defeating the Republic and birthing the new Empire, and then has a transhumanist resurrection as a part man, part machine entity.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about how those, and that's literally what happens with Iron Man as well. He sacrifices himself at the end of Marvel Endgame, and then in the comics he's kind of resurrected as an AI, and in the movies to some degree he kind of is, but they really haven't harped on that too much. They have had him like kind of in like I think Spider-Man gets a pair of AI glasses that Tony Stark like has some influence on. The thing is, Tony Stark himself, his AI, famously Jarvis, is literally named after his old butler that died, and he resurrected Jarvis essentially in the transhumanist AI resurrection.
So I found something on that whole Jarvis vision and how that applies to basically vision, meaning sight, and how the visual cortex has a diagram that it bears exact resemblance to the sigil of Lucifer. So it's really this fascinating thing. I'm going to show you that in a little bit, but I want to rewind to something that you were talking about before, which is this Iron Man 2 connection. And this is something that I straight jacked from you. You told me at one time. I thought it was one of the most fantastic things I had heard. And so basically what we've got is in Iron Man 2, when he shows up to the Stark Expo, right? Tony Stark, Iron Man drops down.
Expo, mind you.
Yes, Expo, that's right. You told me that in the word Expo, the X is very prominent. It's highlighted. It's a bigger font. It's a bigger symbol or letter than the rest of the word, or the rest of the letters in the word Expo. He does his superhero landing. He does his whole pitch. And then the next person that he communicates with when he steps off stage is Elon Musk making a cameo. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up right here. Let me play this for you guys just so you can see this.
Those Merlin engines are fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good idea for an electric jet.
You do?
Yeah.
Then we'll make it work.
Did you know Elon Musk made a cameo in Iron Man 2?
Yeah, because Drutang told me. So isn't that, that's just a fascinating little Easter egg that they drop in there. And then the connections don't stop. One of the other things that you brought to my attention was the fact that hold on a second, let me see if I can fix something here. The fact that later on, in Age of Ultron, Tony Stark he's consumed with this idea of protecting the planet. And the way he wants to go about doing this is to create a protective suit of armor. He calls it a suit of armor around the world. And when he starts talking about that, it's this conjoining of like artificial intelligence and a network of satellites. And on the back holographic display behind Tony Stark, you can see an image of a holographic Earth covered in a web of satellites, much like Starlink, right? And it's like the overlap there is tremendous. And then this is something that I don't know if you've got this on your radar.
The Golden Dome thing that Trump's trying to do right now too.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
So
wow,
there's
forgot about that.
An endless amount of connections. Top, I don't know if you could bring this up, but can you bring up visual cortex diagram?
Oh, it's going to be hard to
Sigil
find.
of Lucifer. You might have to bring them up in separate things. Boom, there you go. So it's interesting because what you've got here is Elon Musk. There you go. Tony Stark, he creates Jarvis. Jarvis is an AI. The AI becomes Ultron. Ultron tries to destroy the world, but there's a better half of Ultron that emerges. It's like a purer version. He's even got a spirit gem or whatever the hell it is over his pineal gland, over his third eye. Vision, the character from Marvel. It's fascinating because he is sentient AI. But when you look up a diagram, we have it on the screen here for people that are just listening, a diagram of the visual cortex, it bears striking resemblance to the sigil of Lucifer, which is fascinating. I don't know what the hell that means. That's above my pay grade. But I don't think that they didn't know that when they called that son of a bitch Lucifer. When they called him Vision, right? There's like this massive crossover there. Artificial intelligence becomes sentient. Many people believe that is the path to the Antichrist, that the Antichrist will be somehow some sort of unholy mashup of artificial intelligence and some sort of biologics or something like that. And they're calling this guy Vision, and that diagram of the visual cortex is the same thing as a sigil of Lucifer. That's very strange to me. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't seen the direct comparison between that and the sigil, but in terms of what it means, it's about inversion, how everything that we see is actually we're looking at everything upside down. That's what that diagram was showing you, is everything is actually upside down and our eyes flip it, which is in some ways meaningless, but that's just how our eyes process things. So that's part of the reason why all their Sabbatean Frankism, for instance, like they focus on inversion. So they have their highest holiday. It's like Judaism flips. So their highest holiday is the saddest day in Judaism, which is the 9th of Av, the 9th day of their 11th month, when they commemorate the falling of the two temples. And then, of course, you have 9/11, the 11th day of our 9th month, with the falling of the two towers. And also, 9th of Av happens to be when Jeffrey Epstein was killed as well, which was
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
We're going to have a very challenging episode coming up fairly soon. We have Andrew from I don't hate Andrew. I kind of abuse him.
Andrew Meyer.
Andrew Meyer, yeah, he's the guy. He's like the don't tase me guy, but he's an Orthodox, and we talk a lot of about Orthodox, and I know quite a bit about it as well. But we're like, you know what? Come on, like, come and talk. What do you have to say? So he's going to push back on some of that, like because you're talking about the Sabbatean Frankism. We're going to talk about probably Kabbalah stuff. We'll probably hit culture and things like that because there's a lot that we agree on. We're also people. It's a hard line to walk with some of these guys. And what I really would love to ask them, and you're not going to get a satisfactory answer, but it's like, do you really think these things? Like, do you really think these things that are in your book? Because I've read it. It's a little disheartening. It's kind of confusing.
You better have that Talmud on deck for him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, I'm going to read through that. Yeah, okay.
Reference material in order to engage in that conversation. But, what you're laying out here, Drew, in regards to this whole like Iron Man connection, it is, Top said it at the top of the show. It's like, it's disheartening because you don't want to believe that your reality is basically a Marvel movie. But these things, it's not necessarily that it's reality, right? It's predictive programming. It allows the subconscious mind to then perceive real events taking place in the real world and be comfortable with them because they've already seen them. It's not new. It's not jarring. They have a basis for it. They have a place of operation or a point of reference, a frame of reference to operate from because they've already seen the predictive programming. And you see this right now. It's kind of faded away a little bit. But when the Trump administration first popped off again, you had, your Captain America and Donald Trump. You had your Iron Man in Elon Musk. You had maybe even your Hulk character in RFK Jr. There's like all of a sudden we're getting our League of Superheroes, our Avengers or our Justice League. Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know what the hell she is, if she's a Black Widow type character, but we were given a League of Superheroes, right? So it's like they drove the culture, the state of America, the economy, even geopolitical relations into the dirt, to the point where we all were hungry for a hero. I think that's also what gave rise to sort of the Hitler sympathies that are going around right now, because we need a strong man to stomp out these fires that were all engineered. And they were all engineered, in my opinion, to generate that feeling, that longing for a strong man, that longing for a team of superheroes, because we've seen it so many times. There's part of us that wants that. Do you think that that's what's going on here with this administration?
Yeah, and actually this is, I got, long-winded and distracted from the original question that prompted my last rant, but you guys asked, where are we at in the movie series? Essentially, in the, so you have all these random movies. The first time that they all come together, all the superheroes, in the first Avengers movie, there's an alien invasion, and they all meet up in New York to repel the alien invasion. And that was when their Madison Square Garden Hitler rally, where they all came together in New York to unite and basically defeat, their primary purpose is to defeat the alien invasion, which the previous administration brought in. And yeah, so that was like Avengers 1 type deal. They all get together, and then in the movie universe, they end up getting the Marvel Civil War, which prompted this podcast. In the Civil War episode, Captain America and Iron Man split ways. They have a disagreement because Iron Man wants to give over sovereignty of the superhero group, and Captain America wants to remain independent. And yeah, so it's a fight between globalism and nationalism. So that is, you can kind of see that with Elon Musk, because he can never be president. He's a different kind of leader than we've traditionally seen in American politics, where it's not even so much about America. He could, it's much more of a global empire that he's creating with things like Starlink, and he's affecting international conflicts, like with I believe he refused to give Starlink access to Crimea to Ukrainians in Crimea.
That's right.
I remember that.
And they're like, "Oh, you're affecting wars around the world," which is literally what, I believe it's the opening of Iron Man 2. They're like, "Okay, you're too powerful. Because you're the only one with the suit, you're controlling international geopolitics." So
that's right. Wow, it's crazy. Word for word, huh? Not even going to try to change it, huh?
It's interesting.
Congressional hearings too is what they have, which is, of course, exactly what Elon Musk was subject to.
Yeah, I think it's that's a fascinating fact too. I didn't know that about the first Iron Man movie, that it had more actual military usage, and you can kind of see that it's evident in the film thinking back now, because it's all about Tony providing arms for the military industrial complex, and there's these scenes where jets are flying overhead, and he's doing all these displays of power where he's blowing mountain ranges up in the background and shit like that. And I guess the Humvee scene, right, where he gets blown up. I'm sure he's driving a real Humvee there, or they used a real one. So that's an interesting correlation. And one of the other things you were talking about before with L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, or I guess Marvell Parsons, would have been his first name, or is Marvell his last name? I don't know what was.
It's Marvell Jack Parsons.
Marvell Jack Parsons.
Marvell. It's that's a black person's name, right? Marvell.
It is, yeah. Marvel is definitely
weird.
Yeah. So I was thinking about how all of this is happening around the same time, right? Because Jack Parsons is contracted by Jet Propulsion Labs, and Jet Propulsion Labs
Well, he's
is
the founder of Jet Propulsion Labs.
oh, he's the I didn't even know that.
Jack
Oh,
Parsons
shit.
Labs, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So that's huge because NASA subcontracts to them, right? And Jack Parsons is effectively the father of modern day jet propulsion technology, and he's a legitimate rocket science, right? Or rocket scientist.
Liquid
and
rocket fuel is what he made basically.
yeah, and so NASA subcontracts JPL, and NASA is founded by Werner von Braun, who writes a fictional series. Obviously, scientists taking over an Operation Paperclip, but he writes a fictional series about a man named Elon, who's like the colonizer of Mars or something like that. And so all of this, whenever we talk about these things, it's such an enclosed circle. Everybody connects to everybody, pretty much starting from the 40s and 50s, Operation Paperclip, the end of World War II, the inception of the CIA, all these mind control experiments and everything else like that, and certainly the kickoff of the world's greatest propaganda machine. Greatest propaganda machine the world has ever known starts around that time, and it's all an enclosed circle. All the characters have come back full circle is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? And it's I keep saying we're at the fruition of works that started much earlier than that, but the real hardware of the situation that we're dealing with right now was created, late 40s, early 50s after World War II. So it's just unbelievable to me that not only because when was Stan Lee in the military? It would have been around that time, no?
In World War II, yeah, he was he was drafted, I believe.
Isn't it interesting, Drew, that we're also sitting in this place right now where sympathizing is on, and it's not like it's unfounded, right? Everybody's learned now about what happened and what happened with the Bolsheviks and when they took over Moscow and all this crazy. Like we have some scaffolding now to start to put the pieces together, and we realize that the official narrative that we got for World War II was not at all many such cases, right? What actually happened there, but what that's given rise to is this sympathy. And to me, I'm looking at Operation Paperclip and what happens at the end of World War II and how it connects to what we're going through today. And it feels like we took, obviously they didn't lose. Germany lost. We took these scientists, we implemented all this here, and now I don't think it's a coincidence at all that we're now experiencing sympathy. Do you think that those things are connected?
The chat also wants to know if you know about, they spelled his name wrong because they're retarded. Puharich, Andrija Puharich.
I don't. Who's that? Indian chess champion? Or?
We'll tell you after.
No. We'll plug him in later on. We'll explain it to you. But do you think that there's a correlation there between us sympathizing now with the regime, considering it seems that the highest up in the regimes created what's ailing us today?
Yeah, it's a bit of a it's a Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem and they provide the solution. So it's Hitler himself was funded by the same industrialists who destroyed them in World War I, then put them in debt with the with the post World War I treaty.
Today's episode is brought to you by PurgeStore.com. What if I told you that more people have died from parasites than have ever died from war? What if I told you that diseases like multiple sclerosis, acne rosacea, and rheumatoid arthritis can all be with parasite medication? Rid your body of these all too common parasites by using Purge Parasite Cleanse. Purge Parasite Cleanse is made with ingredients like zinc, carrot powder, garlic, black walnut. These are all natural ingredients that keep you safe while killing the parasites. And while you're on PurgeStore.com, try out their Digestimes to promote healthy gut bacteria and aid in digestion. These, as well as any other products on PurgeStore.com, can be purchased with a promo code NEPHILIM, NEPHILIM, will save you 15% off of your entire purchase at PurgeStore.com.
And then they immediately, they bought all the industry up, created the economic miracle, and then taught him not only our propaganda methods from Edward Bernays, but then also our eugenics programs from the Rockefellers, and yeah, so they have the problem. It's obvious once people know who is pulling the strings, then they get in opposition to them, just like how Trump is. It's ironic because the libs and the libtards, they've always called Trump Hitler, and yeah, I mean he kind of is in some ways. He's fulfilling a similar role when it seems completely hopeless. But ironically gets Captain America beyond selling war bonds. The real reason why they came out with that comic book is to galvanize Americans against Hitler. It was specifically like punching Hitler, the meme of punching Hitler. Captain America literally punches Hitler in the comic books, and that's like what helped galvanize support, because I believe it was a plurality of Americans during World War II era were originally Germans. There was like more Germans than any other, European flavor in America at the time. So it took a lot of convincing to make them, want to join the war. Of course, also just the fact they were already exhausted from World War I. But yeah, so there's a duality aspect there, and yeah, we're, Werner von Braun, like you were talking about, he wrote that book, the Mars Project, about a human colony on Mars. And in the section, it was a technocracy, and in the section where they say how Mars is governed, the title given to the leader of the Mars colony would be Elon. That's like the direct quote in the book. And von Braun worked directly. He didn't found NASA, but he was the chief architect of the Saturn V rocket. He was also in direct correspondence with Jack Parsons for years, even before he came to the U.S. They were pen pals, talking about rocket propulsion, obviously, as the two basically founders of the science. And he worked directly with Disney right before the moon landing, and they made various fictional TV programs to prepare the public in order to get them comfortable with what to expect when they saw a moon landing on TV. Of course, Disney World and Cape Canaveral are just a couple hour drive away from each other, so it was all one big. And of course, the CIA helped Disney secure that land as well, and NASA. There was a lot of crossover between the CIA and NASA as well.
It's so crazy because this huge arm of the propaganda machine is Disney, especially when it comes to the cultural rot, sort of the LGBTQ stuff. People say that this was taking place and now we're being subjected to it again. It's actually Disney is the tip of the spear in very many ways when it comes to pushing that ideology on children. And in that way, Disney is prepping children for not only that type of propaganda, but also their cultural values, their political values. They boil them down to simple concepts and they give them to children. It really serves as a propaganda machine in the biggest way. But before we go on, we're at the 30-minute mark, and I have to warn all of the poors that we're about to go live exclusively.
Hold on. Let me do it right, David. You keep doing it. We have to go to the private segment for the people who are paid listeners. So I do apologize to the, what did you call them?
Poors. The poors.
Apologize to the poors. But we got to go. Yes. You can catch it on Patreon.
The dirty poors. The unwashed masses.
Wow. Brutal. All right. See you guys later. And this will be on Patreon. Go sign up. Bye.
Yeah. So, and then if you look at the fact that Disney owns Marvel, once again, that circle is just so perfectly enclosed, and it's remarkable that nobody can see it. And I wanted to bring this image up to you because sometimes I get so taken aback by how overt the propaganda is and how impossible it is for the average normie to see it. So this, to me, is a photo op. Right, we talk about this all the time. Topps made a shirt out of it. It's a PSYOP season shirt. That's what it says. The font is super dope. It's available at toplobster.com. It's a banger of an image, right? You have golden shiny Trump towers. The lobby is still intact. The glass is still intact. Everything looks cool right next to it. a flaming Cybertruck. And it's just like this contrast. Not only was this a great representation of what happened the day before this image which was released, and what happened was Elon Musk was spiraling about the HB1 visas or whatever it was that was going on. There you go, PsyOps season. Go to toplobster.com. Get your banger shirts, dude. I love that shirt. I have that one in my closet. Every time, sometimes my wife will wear that shirt. Like we'll go to Walmart, she'll wear it, and I'm like, looks cool, man. People don't know what they see, but it's dope. And so, he's flipping out about the H1B1 visas, and he's like freaking out on people. He's dunking on them on Twitter. He's blocking people. I don't remember what the hell this situation was. It was just like he was a dumpster fire that night. That was just before the new year, I think. And
it was nice to see. It was nice to see him like melt down because he didn't handle it well.
No.
And I was like, I like that. I like that he didn't handle it because like he's a dude that is navigating Twitter, but then you see that he doesn't really even know how to navigate Twitter because that's what Twitter is. He's just a guy that like owns it,
In my estimation, it's theatrics, right? It's like this guy, we talk about him, we give him credit in one sense where it's like he bought Twitter and then he started nudging the cultural conversation. So what he bought was a tremendous amount of,
I think he was legitimately mad.
You think he was? They were both at a UFC fight that night, right?
I don't know. No, I'm talking about like about the H1B because he's like, I move the narrative, and he tried to move the narrative to this H1B, and people were like, no, you. And it's like they were ratioing him on, and I'm sure he's applying algorithmic pressure, and he's just like, he doesn't know how to handle that. So that's like, imagine what the actual response was minus whatever kind of guardrails he has up to push his narrative. I think that's how strong that push was. Yeah. And that's why I found it interesting. Because I think that it was legitimate anger coming from. He sounded like a Indian. You bloody. Just like when they lose their
thing at that time too. He came out with that Adrian Dittman alt account where it was like almost 100% him. I heard them speaking in the same space, and it was like weird. The exact same cadence and voice, and I feel like that. But it doesn't. Whatever the case is, it was very strange to watch from the outside. But that picture was a great embodiment of it. I think they actually were both at a UFC fight that night, Trump and Elon. And Elon's just in his phone going, you, and Trump's enjoying the fight. So you have calm, cool, collected Trump, and you have Elon, who's a walking dumpster fire. And that theme applies again to that image with whatever's going on right now.
Let's tie it back to, because there's a lot there, right? That had to do somehow with the drones. That guy that died in the car was somehow a whistleblower about the drones and zero-point technology.
New Jersey drones.
I don't know. This is coming from Sean Ryan, who's a Fed. So who the really knows what's going on? But that's the narrative that's tied to that as well. And then
was he saying that the Chinese have like way better drone technology than us?
Yeah, he said that they were coming in and out of the ocean. And that was really strange because at that time we were getting all kinds of reports from people who were, in the federal government and people who were in the local government of New Jersey. And they're very contradictory. It was like at one point we got confirmation from some representative who said that there was a submersed, vehicle, submersed craft or whatever under the surface of the water off the coast of New Jersey, and that's where these things were departing from, and which was interesting because a lot of the UAP narrative or the UFO narrative, I don't want to use the new language that Hillary Clinton coined, but a lot of the new UFO narrative is like these things are coming in and out of the ocean. So I was watching that and I'm going, all right, like it's moving in the direction that I think it was going to move in. And then the whole thing ended up going dead. But then we got confirmation that wasn't the case. And I don't know if that was Chinese or if it was Russia, this submersible that was off the coast of New Jersey, supposedly. Or it was Iranian. That's what it was. It was supposed to be
Trump.
Iranian.
In the end, Trump was just like, yeah, we looked into it and it was nothing. And some of it was nothing. Some of it was FAA regulated aircraft with the lights. It wouldn't make sense. Why would it have like two green lights and a red light if it's flying in commercial airspace and stuff? Sure, but there were other stuff. The question
there was more of what were they looking for?
Right. So
true, but there was also stuff mixed in, and like I just said on the last episode, Sam Tripoli owns or co-owns the Comedy Dojo in New Jersey, where the guy that manages the site there and other comedians like Joe List and Mark Norman, they're there and they're seeing these drones and they're saying this is weird. Now in recent weeks, he's saying that the guy that is at the place, he's reporting cryptid related activity. I don't know what that means, but
super cool.
Yeah, it's weird, but it also follows. Like you'll get like a UFO sighting, and then people will be like, "Well, there's Bigfoot," or like there's like some orbs, and then they're seeing Dogman, and I'm just like, I'm just keeping track.
Yeah, just
I know it sounds far fetched, but there is something going on, and when the government tells you nothing to see here, I don't believe you.
Yeah, and there was there was a dock in Newark, I believe, might have been Newark. No, might have been Jersey City. I know it was coastal. It had an inlet, and there was a shipping container that held nuclear or radioactive materials, and that was ripped open, and then the radioactive materials were gone. And so this theory came out that effectively what they were doing was sweeping. They were doing a sweeping technique with all these drones to try to make a coordinated effort to recover this radioactive material, and then nothing ever came of that. I'm sure something did. It's just like need to know basis. We didn't get that passed down, but there were things that looked like planes, but then when you talk to people who were there, they're like, it looks like a plane, but it makes no sound, and it's the size of like a bus. It's not the size of a plane. And then there was other situations, and this was even confirmed by some representative from New Jersey. I don't know if it was I don't remember who it was, but they said that they look like a plane, and then when you zoom in on them, they turn into an orb, like a plasma orb. And that was really strange to hear. So there was so much going on. It was like the fog of war. You couldn't make heads or tails of it. The information was just like nonstop and contradicting and very confusing.
Yeah, I'm hoping Trump pulls out some anti-gravity aircraft carriers at this military parade. That's been on my wish list for a long time.
Dude,
how fun would that be?
I was saying with the latest Elon blaming Trump for being on Epstein Island, I'm like, I hope that they give us aliens as a distraction, because that's what I do. You want a distraction, and they did give us aliens, but they gave us aliens, and now I have to watch LA burn, which is nice too, but it's not what I wanted.
Right.
Yeah. Don't worry. That's the aliens are coming. Don't worry. That's the finale.
Yeah, eventually, right? So I'm watching this situation unfold in LA, and what we're talking about plugs in perfectly. Not only does it plug into the Civil War aspect, but it also echoes that sentiment of predictive programming. Because the way I'm looking at it is, when I was a young man, I was obsessed with this idea of like martial law, and I figured that
those are the OG days, like 2008 on YouTube.
Yes, dude.
The Walmart FEMA centers. They're coming.
That's it. They had the big plastic coffins so that you didn't all the dead bodies didn't leach into the groundwater. They were going to put all the dead bodies in big plastic coffins that were waiting.
God.
Dude, it was a nightmare to be an internet sleuth. 2006, 2007, 2008. You're just watching all this pop up on the radar. You're like, but what are they going to do with all the plastic coffins? Because they're there. I watched footage of them, miles in some cases, just stretching as far as the eye can see, people driving down the road in real rural areas. And the side of the road is just lined with all these plastic coffins they haven't done anything with. And when I say plastic coffins, they're just big black plastic bins that everybody's like, they're going to fill with bodies. So when I was younger, especially because we had received all of our predictive programming, right? I was talking the other day about the video game Infamous, which was a great PlayStation exclusive where you played a character who had sort of like electric powers, and you were a free-running electric power guy in a state of martial law in a torn-down city. Now, because of that sort of predictive programming, I always imagined that I would be on the side of the rioters, the resistance, right? Because that's what we were given constantly as kids. Cartoons, video games, music videos, right? They did that a lot in music videos, which is strange because I don't know what the riots have to do with Rihanna, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Kanye. I don't know what the correlation there, but Run This Town was a great music video. And so you're receiving all of this, and you think you're going to be on one side of it. Meanwhile, what they're doing is they're manipulating low information, high emotion voters into voting for a more porous southern border, right? Because look at these poor kids. The children.
Well, that's what you were. when they're showing you like these, you know, when you're watching these cartoons, they expected you, I guess, to stay in the same spot. A lot of people did. We're talking about Disney. We're talking about Marvel. I'm thinking about these Disney adults. So like that tattoo, what kind of gets that tattoo on their arm? The same kind of that goes to Disney World with Mickey Mouse ears on and his fat wife with no kids.
Yep.
Too many of them.
Resistance. It's resistance.
It's the same people though, right? It's a problem.
People. Well, that's what happens if you don't break out of that paradigm, because they're giving you, especially during a time like that where it's like everybody has this feeling the status quo is lying to us and something is wrong. And then media comes along in whatever form and it goes, look, they are, and this is the dystopian future that could take place. That satisfies that urge of looking into things. And you just go like, yeah, if it ever pops off, I'm in the resistance. But if you're an actual person who seeks the truth, eventually, you know, thank God you come out of the other side. Almost. There's another stopping point. And that stopping point is after they get you to vote for a porous border by emotionally leveraging you with children in cages and all these different things, then you end up actually voting for your very own migrant crisis. And when it shows up, because of the predictive programming, you get funneled into your binary system. Now, if you never really sought the truth, the binary system that you, or, you know, the path that you end up taking is the resistance. That's Black Lives Matter. That's LGBTQ. That's all this. That's I stand with the migrants, even though they're here illegally and they're destroying cities because we don't want them here. Crazy. And then if you went a little bit further, just a little bit further, and you go, no, this is fucked up. Maybe you woke up in 2020 because of everything that happened. You're voting for the feds. You're actually like pulling for the people that are going to implement the martial law. And I didn't see that coming. I thought for certain everybody who had their wits about them would have been on the side of the resistance. And that was when I'm, 17, 18 years old. Now I'm looking back and I'm almost in amazement how excellent the propaganda machine is, because you had one side where it was low information entertainment, and then you had another side. And that other side was Elon Musk coming along and allowing the racial conversation to take place on Twitter. Once it took place, we all started about, I'm guilty of it. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it. You get on Twitter, you engage in the racial conversation, you say all the things that you couldn't have said for years and years. But what that does is it then galvanizes you to that side of things where you go, and I empathize with this greatly. I want to see them get their kicked in. I want to see them get tased. I want to see martial law in LA. You know what I mean? And I get it. I know how we got there, but that you got to get a step further. And you got to go, we were dog walked all the way down this path. And then we were given two fake options, two schools of thought to get funneled into. And it's worked immaculately.
Yeah, I think the best example of this was Jan 6 and the V for Vendetta programming. Because the whole time during the pandemic, I'm looking at this stuff. V for Vendetta, obviously written by Alan Moore, who's another Aleister Crowley occultist. From the UK. He used to his comic books. He originally wrote for Marvel UK because they had a whole separate division for the UK because they didn't want to get propagandized by America. Joke's on them. They got the exact same propaganda, maybe even more potent. But V for Vendetta.
But ours was better.
Yeah, arguably. His stuff is pretty dope though. V for Vendetta and Watchmen specifically.
Watchmen fucked.
And Dr. Manhattan literally, hangs out on Mars and was responsible for the shift to electric cars. Anyways, V for Vendetta, the whole movie in 2005, was what inspired the whole Anonymous, the whole branding of the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah,
that literally predated them using it and like going with like the Anonymous online, hacker group. And their first target was Scientology. So L. Ron Hubbard, if you're talking about, problem, reaction, solution, all these anonymous movements, Anonymous, Satoshi, QAnon, they all originate from the programming from Mr. Alan Moore. And Alan Moore has a great quote where he says, all art is literally magic because it affects the mass subconscious of humanity. And he's like, people who think conspiracy theories, they have so many moving parts, it'd be impossible. Meanwhile, he's participating in the magic that literally creates all these like seemingly impossible things to orchestrate. And of course, Aleister Crowley and him both being British magicians, going back to their, the heritage of the Druid culture of the UK, they were a wizard culture that wore white robes, and they made their wands out of the wood of the holly tree, aka Hollywood. And they understand these methods of programming humanity with fiction. That's why we have Hollywood, and that's why why Alan Moore's fiction is so effective. But of course, in V for Vendetta, the movie is literally about they discovered that the pandemic that happened was a government and it was used to gain more authoritarian control. And then the end of the movie, they all put on masks and stormed the Capitol. All because of an anonymous leader that goes by one letter, Q. No, it's V in the movies, but it was literally the craziest thing. But that being said, I was dog walked right into it. I went, I was at Jan 6. I can say that now that I'm pardoned, but
oh shit, really? That's awesome.
Very gangster, very gangster.
Yeah, I mean, I was never charged for anything because I was just hanging out in the grass, but.
Don't worry about it, Drew. We both got kids. This kind of shit happens. Oh, nice. Yeah. He's like, Dad, you could look 10% cooler.
You want to put on your sunglasses, Boo?
There you go.
Does he know about the Civil War?
Oh yeah, he's gonna be Trump's strongest soldier. Come here, Boo.
Yeah, man. I was also, by the way, dog walked into that. I didn't go to January 6th, but for, I don't know, let's say in the year 2019, maybe 2018, I think I spent about 4 or 5 months, which doesn't sound like a long time, but it is, to be totally enamored with the Q narrative. And it wasn't until I started really zeroing in on this idea of like they're painting Trump as a savior figure. That was when I first started. Hey, buddy. That was when I first started to kind of become disillusioned with the movement, because there were certain things, obviously, the JFK Jr. returning thing, but that wasn't necessarily Q as much it was the community itself kind of like trying to decipher it,
Rumors.
Yes, but that whole painting of Donald Trump as the hero, I didn't even dislike Donald Trump. I just kind of said, no, this doesn't make sense. This is a movie. You're selling me a movie. And once I felt that, the predictive programming doesn't work on me in that way. I guess it did for a few months. They had me, but that's when I started to pull out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was wild because I expected Trump to win in 2020, and then for the storming of the Capitol, the V for Vendetta stuff, I expected that to be the left once again, fighting just like they did originally. And of course, it was wild that this election was on November 5th, and the whole movie is remember the 5th of November, because it's and what's really crazy is the whole Guy Fawkes lore, the actual lore, was also a psyop used by the one of the first Protestant kings. He basically firmly established Britain as a Protestant nation by running a false flag. Guy Fawkes was a Jesuit operative that he set up with the dynamite plot where they're going to the Parliament building in the UK on November 5th, and they set him up. Just like Jan 6, it was a honeypot. So they got a guy who was like, somewhat down for the cause, a Jesuit Catholic who wanted to help the UK become under the control of Rome again. And they just honeypotted him in. They made a little letter. They catch him, and then in the UK, it's still celebrated. They still burn effigies of Guy Fawkes and say that's like the God save the king. God literally saved the king is like the lore there. But yeah, it was completely made up, and it was under the top wizard at the time, Francis Bacon, the same guy who Shakespeare, the idea that it was just a random, the guy who they say Shakespeare was, illiterate, couldn't even sign his kids' birth certificates. It was Francis Bacon and his Rosicrucian boys. They not only translated the Bible into English, which was, talk about programming. The word Bible literally just means the book. So and of course that is the core programming of Western civilization, for better than worse. But they got to choose the exact words, and then through Shakespeare, the Shakespearean works were actually used as an English thesaurus and dictionary because there was no English language. That Francis Bacon established the whole programming that runs the entire world. We all think in English because of what Francis Bacon did, and he was also at the same time under King James. They architected this this little Guy Fawkes plot that's still effective today, and it's just got implemented in the U.S. to galvanize support behind our incoming empire.
It still happens, by the way, because my son was a fan of these characters on YouTube, kids YouTube. They're called Spy Ninjas, I think, and it's just some dude and his Asian girlfriend, and they do taekwondo, and so they have the background for the stunts, but then they incorporate like a fictional narrative, and the fictional narrative is always like there's a bad guy after them. They are not the Spy Ninjas. Yeah, it is a Spy Ninjas. And the bad guy is a hacker, and he wears a V for Vendetta mask, but to avoid that copyright issue, his goatee or his soul patch actually splits into like a double, so that like technically there's a variation they can't get. Mm-hmm. But that mask has become so iconic that they use it for everything. And it was the same thing as QAnon when that mask first popped off with Anonymous, because Anonymous was giving a very similar promise to QAnon, mm-hmm. where QAnon will say like patriots are in control kind of a deal. QAnon would say patriots are in control. Anonymous would say expect us. And it was the same thing. It's basically like, you don't have to worry about anything. Yeah. We're going to handle the big baddies. You guys just stay put because patriots are in control.
I don't know if you guys have tapped in with the left, with the left, but like people like Kyle Kuklinski of Secular Talk, he's making videos like every week about anonymous hopium. But he's like, oh my God, they said they got a big surprise coming up next week, guys. Wow.
No. Come on.
They said and he also did election denial too. So they are literally running QAnon right now with using the same anonymous programming. So they're getting much.
I think what happens is you get to a point where, like, if you're not rooted in Christ, I do think that you get to a point in trying to like disseminate information where you're like, these people kind of suck. They kind of suck. Oh, nice, dude. Hell yeah. Your kid is crushing. He's like, you look cooler now. Now you're more comfortable.
Like, take a nap.
That's awesome, dude.
Put your glasses on.
But like, you get to a point where you're trying to disseminate information, and it's an uphill battle if you're not, getting shekels or something like that. And at some point you kind of realize like, oh, people aren't going to listen, and then also people hate you anyway. And I feel like what happens is it just flips like an evil switch in people, and they go, you know what, dude, I see what they're doing. I see this Hegelian dialectic. I'm just going to apply it to my own model and then find success that way. You know what I mean? Because that's why I say I'm not in the business of waking anybody up. I'm just in the business of information and truth for the love of the game, right? I just love the truth. And I find it fascinating. I always have found it fascinating. And I think if you're passionate about the truth, and you're not passionate about like trying to wake people up, it's a bit of a cliche, and it just doesn't work. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. How many people have you spent years harping to, and it just simply never resonates with them, right? It's like there's a type of person that's receptive, and then there is maybe the masses who are just turned off to it. I don't know if it's the propaganda or if it's human nature, or if it's a combination of the two. This episode is brought to you by Matt Rife and his team over at realrifetechnology.com, the home of the Real Rife machine. A real Rife machine is an electromagnetic radio frequency device engineered by Dr. Royal Raymond Rife in the 1920s, used to address various health concerns. Unlike imitation devices on the market today, Rife Technology was co-founded by Dr. Rife's relatives and longtime friend of the show, Matthew Rife. Real Rife machines are the cutting edge in wellness technology. I personally own one, and I use it all the time. I like to tune my Real Rife machine to the frequencies that help with addiction, to help curb my sugar cravings. Their Royal Rife machine is recognized as a general wellness product by the FDA. They're great for weight optimization and fitness improvement, mental clarity and cognitive functions, sleep enhancement and mood balance, vitality and sexual functions, digestive health and immune boost, skin radiance and endurance boost, healthy blood pressure maintenance, and more. And while you're on realrifetechnologies.com, be sure to check out the other products they offer and use promo code Nephilim for 15% off your entire order. That's promo code Nephilim, Nephilim, for 15% off your entire order when you visit realrifetechnology.com. But either way, I think it can turn you off if you are somebody who is trying to, do whatever you got to do and it's just backfiring. People hate you and you go, you know what, dude? It's shekel time, baby. I'm going to do a little bit of Albert Pike, whatever. If you need a hero, I'm going to get one for you. I'm going to create the bad guy. We'll do a little Hegelian dialectic, and then I'll count my money. I think that's what happens to a lot of people that are at the highest echelons of this. But it's strange to me that, well, it's not strange to me. It's actually really fascinating to point out that so many of the people who are involved with this, you're talking about Alan Moore, are using superheroes to do it. All of our cultural ideas, not only do they come probably most successfully from superhero movies and everything, because that kind of fantasy, I guess, is just it captures the imagination and the attention so effectively. But it's also like they use media. Sometimes on this show we talk about, is culture even good? Everybody's constantly on this thing of like, oh, the culture, this culture, that culture, you're appropriating my culture. I'm like, culture seems to be terrible.
Well, look at this. Let me just show the culture right now. Somebody sent me this meme. Check this out, right? So liberals don't know things. They don't read history. They don't obsess over stats. A few data points they do see, they forget. Their entire world is driven by consumption of fiction. And I'm like, yeah, cool meme from the Department of the Homeland Security.
What?
Department of Homeland Security. Yeah.
What? That's from the Department of Homeland Security?
Responding to Gavin Newsom. So I'm just like, you guys, like, what are you doing here?
That's so crazy.
They're making culture, but it's like so fake from every side. I guess I'm just checked out. I'm out.
Well, even on the base side, right? The right base side. That's why I always tell people, it's like, don't take any of these heroes. Focus on Jesus Christ and lean on God. Don't focus on these like idols, because they're gonna kayfabe you. They're gonna fall. They're gonna make triumphant comebacks. They're gonna turn heel and all this other crazy. Like it's all you're all getting dog walked. And I talk about this all the time about how my wife will be watching something on Netflix or something like that, and I'll hear all the ideology being sprinkled into those shows, and I don't hear them in any of the shows I don't watch anything anymore. I watched the last thing I watched was House of David. Now I'm watching The Chosen. Last night I drive around. I'm like an old dude. I listen only to worship music now when I drive around by myself. I've gotten to that stage in my life, because everything else is just poison and agenda driven, and I can tell you're trying to manipulate me. But in women's entertainment, there's all the messaging. There's the polyamorous relationships, the dads, the trans character who's fun and cheeky and just wants to be accepted and loved, and the writing and the story is such that you have to feel empathetic for this character, and so now you're applying that fictional to the crazy that you see working at GameStop that's shouting, "It's ma'am." You know what I mean? It's like,
and you're trying to get into your bathroom stall.
Yes, yeah. And so I'm like, we've gotten to the point now where I realize culture and entertainment it's a monster. It's a monster that wants to corrupt, corrode, and cut your kids off and they think it's funny, right? Like that's where we are, and it's like I think it's too late, but we should have detached from this a long time ago.
Yeah, it's cool you brought up Netflix because I'm sure you guys know this already, but I was talking about Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda before. He literally wrote a book called Propaganda in 1928. He helped the CIA overthrow the democratically elected government of Guatemala in like 54, and then also helped push feminism, getting women to smoke by calling branding cigarettes freedom torches, kind of based. But but his great nephew, he was actually a great nephew of Sigmund Freud. Edward Bernays was, and then his great nephew Mark Randolph is the co-founder of Netflix. So Netflix itself is literally founded by the great nephew of the guy who created propaganda in the first place. Of course, House of Cards being their first major show. Kevin Spacey. There's I got some great I got a great thread on Kevin Spacey that I won't try and insert here, but it's
honestly, I was just going to ask you if you remembered after Kevin Spacey got brought up on those allegations of like assaulting another dude, and I mean like another dude, like it was dude number 4 or something, like 3.
They're all dead.
Yeah, dude. So Kevin Spacey gets accused of assaulting these guys. All of them just start dropping like flies, and then what happens next? Kevin Spacey, the allegations get him kicked off of House of Cards because he's too spicy to be around, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the holiday season rolls around. Kevin Spacey comes out with this cryptic video where he's sitting there and he's in character as his character from House of Cards. Like it's Frank Underwood. And he is talking in Frank Underwood's cadence, and he's talking about killing your enemies. And then there's a pregnant pause, and he goes, with kindness. And he keeps saying that over and over again. Like something about the best methodology is killing your enemies with kindness. And he's like, what the like who greenlit this? What or what do you call that? Like what's your team that handles all your press and things like that? Your
PR team.
Your PR team. What PR team greenlit this? What said, hey, Kevin Spacey, I know what's really going to get you back on the radar, back into people's homes and houses where they're sitting with their families on the sofa and they're enjoying House of Cards. What's going to do it is, in the middle of all these allegations, when all the people who accused you just mysteriously died, you need to talk about killing people. With a long pregnant pause, and then let them know that it's with kindness, though. Let them know that it's with kindness. You're not actually killing people, Kevin. And it's like, it was this veiled threat that was not veiled whatsoever, and America just saw it. It was well done. I did think it was well. I was like, it's a great character. Frank Underwood is a great character.
And the next guy killed himself. It was literally the day after. It was the day after one of his victims killed him, or the day after the video, the guy killed himself. And then on top of that, of course, Frank Underwood, the character that he was playing in the show, and then in that video, he of course kills his people that are inconvenient to him in the show. He does the same thing. And then on top of that, now this is where it gets really fucked up and where so many question marks come up in my mind, is Tucker Carlson has him on the exact same day, on like the exact 5th year anniversary, interviews Kevin Spacey as Frank Underwood on the exact 5-year anniversary of the Kill 'Em With Kindness video.
Yeah.
Now that Kevin is a free man because all of his accusers died.
How long ago was that?
What's that?
How long ago did Tucker Carlson have him on?
I think that was December of 23, I want to say.
Interesting.
Or it might have been, I think it was it was of 23.
So his TV show then, not the podcast.
No, it was his podcast.
So when he first broke away.
Yeah, let's see. I'll look it up. But
that's a fascinating thing to do because interviewing a man in character as Frank Underwood as a character on a show that he's no longer associated with makes no sense at all. Makes no sense why you would do that. Why would you go if you went, you reach out to his team. I want to interview Kevin Spacey. I want to get his side of the story. You know what I mean?
December 27, 2023. So
it was right there, right after he broke away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just replied to the live stream on Twitter with my thread. This was one of my which was a relative banger. I got like 8K likes on this, and
Oh, you want us to bring that up?
in the comments. Yeah. I think it's creepy enough.
Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, go ahead and read that for us.
But yeah, so the first thing, obviously, rapist. 3 or 4 of his accusers died during trial, resulting in cases getting dropped. He releases the Kill 'Em with Kindness video that we talked about, I believe, on Christmas Eve. Yeah. And then Spacey, remember, this was right during the QAnon era. Trump gets into office, and he was one of the first ones to get exposed as a rapist, bringing down the House of Cards. Of course, his show was the first to fall in the House of Cards. And yeah, so then this one, in the interview with Tucker, exactly, I believe 5 years later, it might be 6, I don't know when he did the original one. But, on the exact anniversary, he's talking to Tucker about how he likes how there's a thin line between reality and fiction that's rapidly disappearing.
Oh my God! You want to talk about telling us?
Programming.
What's true, what's false, what's life, what's art, what's real, what's performance. I love it when these things intersect. Then it gets interesting. I agree, though. I do. He's right. He's not wrong. The problem is that he's doing it.
Yeah. I always tell people to focus on God, strengthen your relationship with God, because that's the truth. There's a reason why they call Jesus Christ the way, the truth, and the life. But people go, but it's fun. And I go, oh yeah, don't get me wrong. It's so fun. It's so well written, this script that we're being subjected to, and it is the most fun to. But it's like when you start to get caught in it and you believe that it's reality, right? When you start picking sides in a Hegelian dialectic type of situation or whatever, when you get funneled into a false binary that they lie out for you, a right-hand path versus left-hand path kind of a situation, that's where you get fucked up. But if you can stay above that, keep your head above those waters, and dip in every once in a while, it is very fun. It's very fun. That is crazy, though.
And do you want me to pull the thread back up, or what are we thinking?
Nah, I think that's good on the Spacey front. I gotta get going here in a sec, but I guess there's a couple of things I wanted to add just to harken back to the original subject with the Marvel stuff.
Sure.
One, we had Jack Parsons was doing the ritual with L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology. Scientology's got to be the best example of how a cult, like probably even more direct than like Freemasonry in terms of influencing the public, because they're a cult that's focused on Hollywood and controlling actors, like Tom Cruise, for instance. Tom Cruise was supposed to be Iron Man. He was the original pick for Iron Man, but he was too expensive. So yeah, so he was supposed to be Iron Man. Watching his most recent movie, the Mission Impossible, it's about a cyber attack, an AI cyber attack. So that's pretty clearly what's up next. And those two things, like how the Marvel Civil War and the Purge Forever scenario that we're going into now merge, I'm pretty sure the cyber attack and the nuclear war leading into alien intervention, those are all going to be, chained together and happen in pretty quick sequence. But yeah, and then I guess we talked about the Trump Captain America versus Iron Man Civil War. What that represents is nationalism versus globalism, and after Trump is done, then the Musk transhumanist technocratic globalism kind of empire takes over.
Drew, can I go back to something for a second?
Yeah,
sure. You're talking about how what you think is going to happen is like a nuclear event and then alien intervention, which I agree with. And there's two things recently that happened that kind of put some sand in that bucket, and that is one, that lady on TikTok who's talking to that Entity 7. Now the date has come and passed. It was supposed to be May 27th, but the idea is that she's communicating with this thing through a Ouija board for like 15 years, and it's telling her that a nuclear event is happening, and if we can save ourselves from the nuclear event, then there's going to be some sort of like spiritual ascension, which probably involves aliens, right? And the other thing is, there was a woman in the Denver, Colorado airport recently, I would say just before June, right? So we're talking late May as well. And I was actually drawing a correlation between these two events because I wondered if they were talking about the same thing. She's on her knees, she's reading a script, she's talking about how They have weapons that we don't even understand yet, and what's coming is going to be worse than 9/11. And of course, of all places, that happens in Denver, Colorado, which is one of the most like the most highly esoteric buildings, on the face of the planet, certainly in the United States. And so I don't know if that was genuine. It felt like a scripted event to me, but I think it was worth taking note on. She was saying weapons that you don't even understand, and it's worse than 9/11 what's coming. So just wanted to throw that in there, but go on.
Ooh, that's a fun one. I haven't tapped into that level of community in a while. I gotta get off the crypto.
I'll send you a couple of things. You might find them interesting. After the show, I'll send them your way.
Perfect. Well, that's sounds interesting. It does sound it lines up with the leftover predictions I still got left to mark off there. I guess just to go into what's going on right now with the LA riots, just because it's topical. I've been waiting for this based off of the Purge predictive programming, where basically Purge came out in 2012, 13, literally right as BLM came out, which was like in the post 9/11 phase. Like we had the 1992 Rodney King riots, of course the late 70s like Detroit race riots. We had been like relatively cool and calm. I remember in 9th grade the teacher was like, raise your hand if you think racism is over. Of course Obama had just been elected, whatever. So everybody, like, there was very few people, which is a crazy dynamic, could never happen now in a high school classroom.
Oh,
but
man,
yeah, very few people thought that racism was still a thing. But they restarted it up with Obama in I think it was Michael or whatever, the hands up, don't shoot bullshit.
Trayvon Martin.
Oh, was that the first one?
I think so.
I think Trayvon Martin was the first one, yeah.
They just did something interesting. They had like a Sprite and Skittles as like a sacrament, kind of as a mock communion to Trayvon Martin. I was like, God, jeez, they're just missing the watermelon, but
where he attacks the gas station attendant or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, they run that with Obama. They come out with the Purge movies about wearing masks and there being periods of lawlessness. And ultimately, all that really builds up to the pandemic riots. That was like the BLM crescendo, and that's why it's gone now, because that's the end of that story arc. So now they switch in. They're like, hey kids, we know you all grew up during the pandemic and couldn't go to high school, and all you could do to go outside was to riot and steal. And they started to do the teen takeovers and stuff. They don't even need martyrs anymore, which again shows that the BLM stuff is irrelevant. But the immigrant stuff is fresh. So I knew that was going to be, the next thing. And mainly what actually tipped me off first was the fact that the final Purge movie called, I think it's The Purge Forever, or Forever Purge, I forget how it goes, but it's all the other movies up until that point all focused like directly on BLM, direct white versus black themes. The final movie is the only one that focuses specifically on illegal immigrants in Texas and them rising up and taking over the ranches from the rich white ranchers.
That reminds me of the guy who ended up shooting the illegal migrant in his home and then ended up catching a case and going to prison. That like 70-something-year-old man who owned property on the border there. So that checks out.
Yeah, so that's what I was waiting for, and I could tell that was tied into the Civil War. I think that's what they describe in that movie. Basically, all the other movies, after one night, the Purge sirens, go off again to symbolize the end of it, and everything goes back to normal. In this movie, for the first time, there's like 4 or 5 of these movies. This is the first time that the siren goes off and people just keep purging. So they just don't stop, and it's just constant. So just like with BLM, where they'd have, okay, one guy got martyred, you can riot for a couple of days here because of this. Just very focused. Now you've got illegal immigration. You can run this all day long. You don't even need a martyr anymore. And everyone, especially Chicago, it's summer, they were literally doing teen takeovers where they're just like, all the kids that grew up in the pandemic, they said, hey, all we need is a Facebook group. You just say, hey, let's meet up at this gas station. We have 2,000 kids. We can take whatever we want. We can rob them. We can,
That's happening in
LA.
New Jersey.
They love doing that the street takeover, where they do the loop-de-loops and run kids over. There's a drunk driver, a mom drunk driving with their kids doing donuts recently. But anyways, yeah, so that's what's coming next, and in the movie it's like a decentralized civil war, and yeah, they kind of had the Marvel Civil War thing was kind of like a gunshot, I guess, which is I always wondered like what the connection was, because even when I'd like try and look up through my own tweets for something Civil War related, I'd always get, when I was looking for one of them, I'd find my tweets about the other, like more geopolitical Civil War versus the, Marvel Civil War. And it's just hilarious that they used one to directly trigger the other.
And they've done it brilliantly. Like I've been saying for a couple of years now, I'm from New York, and the way that they've put these people in New York, it's like I described it as landmines. So where I used to live, they were putting them in the field. Where I used to live, there's like a, what's it called, Floyd Bennett Field. It's like basically an air base. They were putting them there, putting up tents and putting them in hotels. But they're like they're sparse and they're kind of all over the place. They'll put them in houses as well, like Section 8 houses. So it's just like they're here and they are waiting. And the crazy thing is that people don't even really know the order. They don't know the trigger word. But once it's given, they activate. And it's almost genius. But like I've been looking at it for a long time. It's like that's a bomb going off in a city that has been planted there for years and years now. And it's not just like the old immigrants. There's a lot of old immigrants. Some of them have assimilated. Some of them understand. These are just this new influx that is, it's going to be a problem, dude. It's going to be a problem for a while. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, we haven't even seen, this is like the mild, like how they're keeping it Mexican themed. That's a hilarious style point that I didn't think they'd be bold enough to do. Because I was saying for the last couple of years that the way you could figure out if somebody wasn't paying attention whatsoever to the immigration crisis is if they thought it was Mexicans. I'm pretty sure it was net negative. People going from Mexico to the U.S., like, we were running like a deficit with that.
Yeah, you got all kinds of other
Venezuelans, Chinese,
Haitian, El Salvadorian.
Yeah, yep, El Salvadorian, Haitians. And like anybody who thought it was Mexicans, I'm like, oh, that's a dead giveaway. You don't even know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they just went for a convenient thing, and it also helps with the optics to really get. It's just so trash optics, and they can't turn it around. It's so funny.
But people will still fall for it, dude.
Bring out American flags, please. It's horrible optics. Like, no, you. The only time they have them upside down. It's, the chef's kiss. It's beautiful.
Well, listen, Drew, we want to respect your time. I know you got to go. I think we did a great job here of highlighting how pretty much everything that we think is happening has been not predicted for a long time, but engineered for a long time. And then the question that they had to answer is just which one of these outcomes seems the most viable. And they keep redirecting, adjusting their aim, and then moving towards that and funneling us towards it the entire time. It's been a long path. I think it's all spiritual because, if you look back at how long it takes, no man will see the fruits of this labor. This is something else. This is a long game, and we are at what I think might be the end of it. Endgame, right? Marvel Endgame or Avengers Endgame, if you will. But one more time for the people, Drew, before you get out of here, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, at Drutang Reborn on X. I think the next thread I'm going to drop is like just a straight predictive programming guide, just a list of a fun movie list for you and your loved ones to watch at home, just like subject by subject, probably starting with like 9/11, and then going into pandemic stuff, BLM, pandemic stuff, then like just showing you how they guided the population into pandemic, depopulation, aliens, and how they've already basically told you exactly what's going to happen, transhumanism.
Drew, is this book still available for people?
I got a few loose copies lying around. I got to do another print run, really, but yeah, how'd you like it? You enjoy it?
Dude, I love it. It's like you can't open a page without finding something incredibly fascinating. I just went from Looks like we had the what did you call it? Kundalini yoga on one thing. We've got hollow earth theory on another page. There's so much stuff going on. You're breaking down Graham Hancock's work on this page. It's like it's a fascinating range. It's kind of like this episode was, where it's an overview of so many things that are relevant to the conversation, and I think it's actually great. It's almost like this little. It's a small book too, so it's great as reference material for some of the most. But it all applies, and that's why I asked. I mean, I imagine if you do have some copies, some people could probably DM you and see if you're willing to part with one of them.
Yeah, just DM me and I'll hook you up if there's anyone that wants one. But yeah, that's my favorite thing with the book is just like having it physical and having so many of those images and like diagrams and stuff that you've only ever seen on the internet. Just being physical. And like you said, just being able to open up to any page and like I'll be talking to people and like, hold on, wait, I got the book right here. I'll show you the picture.
Dude, I mean,
so much more powerful than pulling something up on the phone.
I'm looking at Nikola Tesla right here. You've got stuff on Tesla. I turn a little bit. You've got mass coronal ejections on this page. Looks like we've got Antarctica and the exploration of Antarctica on this page. It's great, man. It's an awesome reference. Oh my God, we've got Rothschilds and the elongated skulls of the Nephilim and everything. I mean, crushing. It's a great book, and you can turn to any page and find something fascinating.
They'll find this book 200 years from now and be like, "What the f is going on?"
Yeah,
what was
I scattered about 10 copies at the Tim Cass Castle when I was there. So
I think Shane Cashman probably found them all and took
Shane
them all for
found
his own
it.
collection.
Tim didn't. Very sorry.
Yeah, Tim didn't.
Tim
tried to hide them.
I went out in Miami for drinks with Luke Radowski and Ian, the hippie dude.
Crossland.
Yeah, Ian was on shrooms. It was hilarious. Guy was
That's so funny.
He's a great time. What a very obviously great guys. I think Luke is probably one of my favorite person of all time. You guys are legend.
I think if you put one of these books in Ian Crossland's hands, he would try to figure out a way to distill it and put it in a slow IV drip or something. He's that guy. You know what I mean? He's really bad. I love Ian Crossland. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time, Drew. This is a banger of an episode, and I guess that's all we got, huh?
Perfect. Yep. I'm satisfied.
As am I. Top, take us out of here, man.
All right, man. Hopefully this episode doesn't get us banned like the last one, but that means it's a good one. Guys, see you later. 4:30. Bye.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real.
You can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see.